Alright, welcome to my channel. So I have a book here. The name of the book is America's Hope, Volume 1 by a guy named Tom Schuft. Gonna take a read in this book. Let's see how interesting it is. It's all about the money. This book explains in everyday English the federal publications up to 1986 and what bankers explained to Tom. Bankers told Tom that they want this to remain a secret. They even tried to get Tom to swear to secrecy. The bankers wrote the loan agreement. If it is good for America, why not explain all of the details to all voters? Tom says stop fighting the bankers and stop going to court. Court is risky. Use the banking system to your advantage like the judge, lawyer, sheriff, politician, and CPA to accumulate wealth or use the vote to change things. Money can control the media, politicians, judges, and the church. Today's banking violates the Bible as the church remains silent. Why silent? The church has a secret agreement with the bank. Open brackets, IRS tax deductions. To remain silent as the church gets a financial benefit. 2 John 9:11 says stop supporting the church with false teaching. If you obey the church, has to tell the truth or have no money to operate. Why does the bank need to control the church? The answer is Revelations 13. Someone working with the government in 1982 was working on a national ID card to track all Americans by satellite. He was scared and explained how this would take all rights and freedoms away. He said to expect a terrorist attack to convince Americans, aka North American, aka the Caribbean countries, aka Trinidad and Tobago, to accept this new slavery. Banks fear that the church will object, so the banks control what the preacher says by money. The IRS tax deduction. The IRS is the collection agency for the privately owned Federal Reserve Bank. Why support any church like this? Freedom costs. Bankers fear voters will learn the truth and reject the bankers' agenda. If you want to help us sell books and save America, send self-addressed stamped envelope saying, I want to be a book reseller to Tom Schuft, care of P.O. Box 97015, Las Vegas, Nevada 89193-7015. Thanks for helping us save America. About the author. Thomas Schuft has a diverse background. He graduated from Northern Illinois University with a Bachelor of Science with double majors in accounting and finance. After graduation, he worked as a staff accountant for Motorola. He worked for a small certified public accounting firm, owned and operated his own business brokerage firm and certified public accounting practice. Over a period of nearly 10 years, he has testified in a number of cases as an expert witness in business valuation and has taught the arts of business valuation, business acquisition, and negotiations to buyers, CPAs, and lawyers on a national level in colleges and major universities. He has taught lawyers and thousands of CPAs the art of valuation and negotiation in his copyrighted course designed to meet continuing education requirements. He has been a controller and the head of purchasing and personnel for a major manufacturing company. He was also a real estate broker and aircraft flight instructor. Disclaimer: people reselling the Top Secret Banker's Manual and Books 1 and 2 may offer consulting services and/or other products. Please be aware that Tom Schuft has no partners and that anyone you contract with for consultations or other services is acting as an independent agent. Tom Schuft has no control over what other people offer you as consultations, comments, advice, information, or products. Tom Schuft is not liable for what these others may offer or the results thereof. Hmm. So America's hope to cancel bank loans without going to court. It actually, wow, these books actually exist. Who funded the bank loan check? Borrower or banker? The bank loan concealment revealed. If the bank paid their debt, you would be out of debt. You be the judge and the jury and decide if a bank loan is bank robbery in reverse. Tom Schaff. Let me just read that again. Let me just read that again. America's hope to cancel bank loans without going to court. Who funded the bank loan check? Borrower or banker? The bank loan concealment revealed. If the bank paid their debt, you would be out of debt. You be the judge and the jury and decide if a bank loan is bank robbery in reverse. Thomas Schaff. Nothing but the truth press. Notice, Mr. Schaff trained, hired and paid an individual who signed an agreement of confidentiality to write for Mr. Schaff. The agreement prohibited the individual from writing commercially for others on Mr. Schaff's subject without Mr. Schaff's written permission. After receiving the materials, this party then refused to edit or write and wrote to Mr. Schaff explaining that they would not honor the agreement and would use the money to write commercially for another. This information in this book is exclusively Mr. Schaff's property. It is illegal to make a derivative of this copyright. Please help us by informing us of any derivatives of this copyright. All rights reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced or transmitted in any form or by any means, electronic or mechanical, including photocopying, recording, or by any information storage and retrieval system without permission in writing from the author. Printed in the United States of America, 7th printing April 2002. Table of contents, we're going to skip all those juicy table of contents direction. Introduction. If the government issued cash using United States notes, cash, interest-free, like President Andrew Jackson, President Abraham Lincoln, and President John F. Kennedy, the national debt could be zero. Your personal income tax could be zero, and the average American could have very little, if any, debt. History shows President Kennedy was assassinated within a few months of issuing United States notes. Upon his death, President Johnson immediately replaced the United States notes with Federal Reserve notes. If President Kennedy had lived and continued printing United States notes interest-free, tens of trillions of dollars the banks now have would be in the hands of American citizens. If he had lived, the national debt could be zero and your personal income tax cut to zero. For every dollar of United States notes issued by the government, interest-free, the citizens have one less dollar of tax and one less dollar of debt. Economically speaking, a United States note gives the citizens an economic benefit similar to having gold or silver currency. Only the government can create money, giving bankers and non-bankers equal protection. Banks must only loan other depositors money and stop creating money like a counterfeiter. The banks demand that only they print the money and loan it to the government at interest, creating the national debt of $5 trillion. The banks create money and loan it to citizens as they buy homes, cars, and farms. For every dollar the banks print and loan to citizens, the citizens have one more dollar of debt. The banks believe it is good business to create money, loan it out, and force you into more debt paying them interest. If your neighbor could counterfeit money and loan it out at interest, he would be rich. If he was not stopped, he would end up loaning money to nearly every person owning a home, car, farm, or business. Nearly everyone in America would be paying your neighbor interest or he would foreclose and own the property. This is why counterfeiters go to jail. Economically speaking, there is little or no difference between your neighbor counterfeiting money and the banks creating money and loaning it out at interest. The Revolutionary War was fought to stop banks from creating money and loaning it out. The Constitution allowed gold and silver as currency, prohibiting banks from creating money. This is why the media and the banks hate the Constitution. America's history shows that the banking system has changed from one where the government issues the money to one where the banks issue the money. When enough people wake up, the government will issue the money once again and people will become debt free. If we remain asleep, the banks will continue to create money and the people will end up having huge debts. The people are waking up once more, pushing for the government to follow Presidents Andrew Jackson, Abraham Lincoln, and John F. Kennedy. All we need to do is follow these great American presidents and expose those who would support the enemies of our Revolutionary War. Educated people want United States notes, issued interest-free, and banks want to create money and loan it out. This is the secret the media tries to hide. The bankers try to conceal, the judges ignore, and the lawmakers support. Obviously, they have a financial interest in creating money and loaning it out at interest. If the American population knew the truth and understood why we fought the Revolutionary War, they would vote out every lawmaker, judge, and policeman aiding and abetting the banks. This is why this book is sweeping the nation. People are talking and informing others. Brochures and cassette tapes are being copied and distributed. If we followed President Abraham Lincoln and the Constitution, and if the banks paid their debts, the national debt would be eliminated. Personal income tax eliminated, and people would be out of debt in a short time. Please join us in exposing the truth. Be a leader. Tell your friends. Get groups of people to pass out the brochures, copy the cassette tape, and lend out the book to others. When enough Americans learn the truth and what the media has hidden from us, every real American will want to follow Presidents Jackson, Lincoln, and Kennedy and eliminate our debt. All freedom-loving Americans who believe in the Revolutionary War, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, join us in getting this message out so we can get the support of the American people. We cannot correct it if we all believe a lie, but we can correct it if enough Americans learn the truth and want out of their loans. It will be up to you to save America. Teaching method. To make things simple, this book will begin with the basic concepts. These concepts will be repeated with new information added as we progress. Different illustrations will be added with more sophisticated arguments and teaching given. The goal is to have an average non-banker able to argue the bank loan agreement like a CPA expert witness. CPA stands for Certified Public Accountant. Key concepts will be repeated a number of times in various illustrations to be certain you understand the idea. If you do not understand the key concepts, you will be lost. For those who understand it the first time, please be patient with those who need repetition. About half of the population needs repetition to grasp new concepts, and many people who claim to understand without repetition find that upon being examined, they do not. It is important that bankers know this book explains to everyone exactly how to argue the bank loan agreement like a CPA expert witness. Experience has shown that even a competent CPA bank auditor occasionally requires 20 minutes of instruction on some of the concepts included in this book, while others understand these concepts immediately. Therefore, we have chosen to repeat some of the material more than once, in slightly different words and with different examples, to be sure that non-professionals can clearly grasp the information. The goal of this book is to arm you with the information you will need to argue against a CPA expert witness and win. Acknowledgement. Ancient history records leaders like Hannibal and Caesar fighting against the bankers. No book would be complete without acknowledging the Bible's condemnation of today's banking system. Moses gave the bookkeeping entries of today's bankers and condemned it. History acknowledges Moses as the first lawgiver prohibiting today's banking system. The Apostle Paul called it a swindle. The Apostle Paul insisted anyone involved in this practice be thrown out of the church. President Andrew Jackson fought the money changers and won his battle. He read and believed the Bible. President Jackson followed the Bible's condemnation of today's banking system. President Jackson declared that the Bible is the rock on which the Republic rests. I thank the President and Congress for making Public Law 97-280, 96-121 law proclaiming the Bible to be the Word of God. This law allows Americans to use their religious beliefs in condemning the banking practice. I thank Attorney General Janet Reno for her statement. Quote, "It is very important that Congress represent the people of the United States and not one special interest group." End quote. I thank Judge Martin Mahoney for admitting that the banks operate contrary to public policy. Public notice. This book was not written with the aim of overthrowing the government. This book is designed to expose the truth of the bank loan agreement and illustrate its economic effect on Americans. It is explained in everyday terms that people can relate to and understand. This book is pro-American and proclaims Americans' right to free speech and the practice of religion. I am merely putting forward this information as part of my political platform as a candidate for President of the United States. This book is prohibited from being used in court. It is not designed to be used in court, and people are prohibited from using it as an exhibit in court. You may, however, take notes and use those notes, questions, and Federal Reserve Bank publications as court exhibits. But use of this book is prohibited. Upon receipt of this book, the reader agrees not to use the information contained herein as an exhibit in court. If the government, bank, or any other agency attempts to stop this book from being distributed by accident or design, or if I die or am placed in jail to silence this book, steps have been taken to copy this information and have it distributed from hundreds of locations throughout the nation. This will happen, excuse me. This will happen if there is any attempt to suppress this information. The banks may create a depression or a cashless society as a result of this book. We must inform as many Americans as quickly as possible to be sure everyone knows the truth and who to blame. I believe that if brochures are copied and distributed like wildfire, the banks will not dare create a depression in order to force us into a cashless society or try to call a constitutional convention to end our rights. America's future is up to you. Please spread the word quickly. Disclaimer. This book is based solely on the definitions as given in this book, as well as Federal Reserve Bank publications and standard bank bookkeeping entries. This book presumes equal protection under the law and that all material facts must be disclosed in an agreement. The basic presumption of this book is that a loan is not an exchange. I am not claiming that bankers, politicians, or CPAs are criminals. I believe the general public is misled as to the truth of the bank loan agreement regarding who provided the original capital in funding the bank loan check. The general public is misinformed as to the economic consequences of such banking processes. This book will not claim that bankers are criminals, but endeavors to show the general public the economic effect of a transaction according to the bookkeeping entries. The reader must use the glossary of terms unique to this book. Example, Counterfeit is defined as private banks creating money. Stealing or theft is defined as the bank obtaining the borrower's promissory note, open brackets, loan agreement, without loaning 1 cent of legal tender or other depositor's money. The words counterfeit, theft, larceny, etc. have been used to describe similar or like economic effects. In this way, non-accountants can understand the real cost and risk of the bank loan agreement. I have written this book according to my research, belief, theory, and religious conviction. This book cannot be used in a government court as evidence. Attorneys representing banks may contact me to help stop this book from being entered as evidence in court. I refuse to be the expert witness or testify in court unless I agree in writing and am paid to do so. This book was written to create a political solution, not to correct the bank problem in court. A political solution will save the economy and the nation. We must be responsible and protect the economy. I believe we have the best government and nation in the world, and we should use the vote we have to correct the nation's problems. Before one can vote intelligently, one must know the whole truth. The problem is that people believe that the bank agreement discloses all material facts. Borrowers would never dream that the Federal Reserve Bank publications show that the banks do the opposite of what most borrowers believe. This book will present evidence allowing the reader to be the judge and jury and decide for themselves if there is a fraud or not. According to certified public accounting ethics, I believe I must tell the truth about this banking system. No other party is to speak on my behalf. If I did not publish an idea or piece of information or place it in writing and sign it, I take no responsibility for it. I am concerned that people will misquote me or take my meaning out of context. By changing one word, the entire meaning can be obscured. Therefore, I ask that people not quote me on this book. Do your own research before taking any legal action. Tom Schauf is not giving legal advice. He is merely giving information to become elected. This book is based on information believed to be correct, but it is up to you to research it. It is possible that the Fed may change their publications in the future in order to change their previous quotes. This book uses information from Federal Reserve Bank publications up to 1996. After 1996, I do not know what Federal Reserve Bank publications will say. Do your own research. And I reiterate that this is for entertainment purposes only, not to be construed as legal advice or be taken as legal advice for any legal situation. This is for entertainment purposes only.